I am joined now, though, by Mark Davies, who's from the Refugee Council. Mark, thank you very much. It's great to have you on. The other breaking line today from Rishi Sunak was about two new migrant barges. We are yet to discover exactly where in the UK they will be plonked. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I mean, we don't agree with the idea of putting people on barges, and we sympathise with the communities that will be probably unhappy about it as well. It's not the way to treat people. It's not the way that British people want to treat people who've escaped trauma and really difficult circumstances in their home countries. And it's a direct result of the government's mismanagement of the asylum system. If it wasn't for the fact that there's a massive backlog of claims, as you've rightly pointed out, then we wouldn't be in a position where the government's scrabbling around trying to find places to put people. So I wholly agree with you.
Yeah, I think we have found a point of total agreement, which is on this backlog. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, really, that we've got this amount of people just waiting 4 years. It's costing the taxpayer a huge amount of money. It is the main reason why we're seeing a lot of people in hotels. I suspect you and I may differ when it turns out whether or not what verdict we'd like given on the people who are on the backlog, but there we go. Also, Rishi Sunak was defending the idea of detaining initially child migrants, people claiming to be children coming across the Channel. Do you think that's inhumane? Because he was saying we're going to do this because we want to deter people from just pushing children out into the Channel and knowing that we will be able to take them.
I mean, it's totally inhumane. It's not fundamentally in line with British values, actually, Patrick. I think it's something that most people in this country would find absolutely abhorrent, and it's a really horrendous thing. I mean, the fact is, and these are facts, unfortunately, from the Home Office's own statistics, that the vast majority of people who come across on the boats are genuine refugees. They're from places like Afghanistan, which is a place that we said where we'd help people as they escape.
Mark, I'm going to have to cut in there. I'm going to have to cut in there because this is a figure, Mark. This is a statistic that yourself and others like you do wheel out, but you say that in the same breath as the fact that we are not processing the vast majority of people coming over. So you don't know that. None of us know whether or not the majority of these are genuine asylum seekers at all, because we are processing so few of them. Can I ask you a bit about whether or not your cause is slightly undermined, given a new report from the International Rescue Committee, which appears to show that we are treating asylum seekers and refugees much better than our European friends, and whether or not you should be taking your fight to the European Union instead?
Well, I haven't seen that report. It's not really the case. I mean, actually, benefits for people seeking asylum are actually better in France, for instance. So I'd have to have a look at that report. But I think, I mean, you cut me off when I was talking about and I understand why, of course, around the facts. And the facts are that when claims are processed, the vast majority of those claims are agreed, so 75% of all claims. And you're absolutely right, that they should be processed much more quickly, absolutely, and we've got this absurd backlog. But that doesn't mean that people are twiddling their thumbs and not doing anything. In fact, when they are processing the claims, they're finding that people from these terrible countries, all these countries which are facing real problems, like Afghanistan, which, as I said, we promised that we'd step in and help people facing the Taliban and all the threats of that, and we've let those people down, those people who serve with the British military or supported the British military, and we're absolutely letting them down. Only 40 people have come under the government scheme from Afghanistan. It's extraordinary.
You mentioned the British military there, Mark, because I can guarantee you that there are people who fought in countries like Iraq and Afghanistan who would absolutely give their hind teeth to be put up free of charge at the taxpayer's expense in hotels in central London with bed and board. Hotels that have caused such outrage by these asylum seekers, some of whom have travelled across 2 continents, and if what you're saying is true, even swerved a better life, better benefits in countries like France in order to come over here and reside over here. I did say it before, I think a lot of these people are asylum shoppers, not asylum seekers. But can I ask you about the Refugee Council? Because there have been accusations levelled at a few groups which insinuate that you are basically aiding and abetting human trafficking, in the sense that you are providing support for people and in some way, albeit indirectly, encouraging people to make a dangerous journey across the Channel. How would you respond to that?
Well, it's a very serious charge, that, Patrick, and it's absolutely not the case at all. What we do is we provide services like therapy. We literally provide blankets and food for children, unaccompanied children, who've taken an incredibly dangerous journey across the Channel. That's the kind of thing we do. We certainly don't encourage anybody. It's a horrendous thing for somebody to do that journey. It's really dangerous. If you take a look at there's a brilliant app actually, if you want to download it, which shows all of the channel shipping traffic. If taking that journey is an incredibly dangerous thing to do, and we would discourage anybody from doing that. We would also absolutely condemn wholeheartedly the people smugglers who make money out of this evil trade. They're basically making money out of people's misery, people who've escaped things that you and I would just find horrendous, and they should be treated in the same way that we treat people from Ukraine, because we've given 200,000 visas to people from Ukraine, and rightly so, but we don't seem to think that a house bombed in Syria or Iran or Sudan is the same as a house bombed in Ukraine, which seems really strange.
Well, I can understand that. I mean, having gone to report from the Syrian border and the Iraqi border myself, and speaking to people on migrant camps there in places like Turkey, they are actually dead keen to try to stay around the area there, and maybe a little bit more support in those areas. I mean, look, Mark, thank you very, very much.
Sorry, Patrick, quickly to say, most refugees do stay in the neighbouring area because obviously they want to go home as soon as they possibly can, and that's the reality. We talk a lot about refugees in this country, but actually we take far fewer refugees than the rest of the world.
But we are taking more economic migrants, Mark, aren't we? Because a lot of people coming across the Channel now are actually from India, and we have a very, very good workable visa scheme with India, and it strongly indicates that those people do not match the economic criteria, which is quite easy, actually, in order to legally come here. So a lot of people coming over the Channel now are from India. Presumably you don't support that because they're not refugees, are they?
No, I mean, absolutely. It's really interesting that there's suddenly an increase in the number of Indians coming. That's absolutely right. We don't know the reasons for it, but you're right.
Well, it's economic migration. We do know the reason.
Well, that's probably is, but I think it's really, really important to say that the vast majority, as proven by the Home Office statistics, come here because they are facing real trauma in their home countries. You're absolutely right about India. It's a really interesting question, isn't it? Just as it's a really interesting question about Albania. You've referenced that a lot as well. But what I think is really important is that we don't overlook the fact that obviously people are coming from places like Sudan, which was recently in the news, where their homes are being bombed and they're being forced out of the country, and they have really strong cases.